Imagine standing at your father's funeral, grief pressing heavy on your chest, when the sister who stole your man leans over and whispers, "Poor you, still single." She thought she had the man, the money, and the mansion. But then, I called over my husband, and in that moment, her smile vanished. Hi lovelies, welcome back to Tales by Lope, where stories of betrayal, resilience, and unexpected triumph come alive. Today's story is titled, She Took My Man and My Future, but I walked in with a husband she couldn't face. If you believe betrayal doesn't get the final say, then this story will keep you hooked until the very end. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss a story that reminds you, life has a way of flipping the script. 4 years ago, my younger sister took my wealthy fiancé and called it destiny. Today, at our father's funeral, she leaned in close like she was sharing a blessing instead of a bruise. Simone's diamond studs flashed under the chapel lights as she whispered, "Poor you, still single at 37. I got the man, the money, the mansion." I smiled. "Have you met my husband?" Her smile faltered. Her hand, always steady when she's performing, gave a small, involuntary shake. We're a black family that knows how to dress grief in elegance. The satin ribbon on Dad's casket gleamed like midnight. The women's hats were soft halos in shades of charcoal. People murmured memories and pressed warm hands into mine. But all I could hear was Simone's old sport, finding a soft spot and pressing until it bruised. "Look at you, Amora," she added, voice sugar-sweet and sharp enough to cut. "Standing alone while life passes you by. It's almost pitiful." That was always Simone's gift, sounding concerned while setting the knife. She adjusted a bracelet I'd seen on magazine covers, the kind that announces itself before you enter the room. When was the last time a man looked at you and saw something worth having? I let her words float between us and fade. The thing about healing is that it makes noise on the inside but moves quietly on the surface. My cheeks didn't burn this time. My chest didn't collapse. I had already rebuilt. She flicked her eyes toward my ex, the man she'd married, Calvin Rhodes, standing near the guest book, polished and expensive as ever. "He feels terrible, you know," she cooed. "But a heart wants what it wants. A heart wants what is easy," I thought. Sometimes it just wants applause. I could feel our aunties watching, the cousins watching the aunties, the church friends watching all of us. Black folks can smell drama the way we can smell rain. Even in mourning, the A hummed. Simone tipped her chin at me. "I have everything a woman could want. A devoted husband. A home people talk about. A future already paid for. And you. That little apartment and that tiny job." Her laugh was soft and cruel. "Don't you want more?" I looked at her and saw a house built on grace notes and credit limits. I saw a girl who learned early that admiration is a drug with a wicked crash. "Actually," I said, and my voice surprised me with its calm. "I'm not alone. Haven't been for a long time." Her brows pinched in confusion as a figure stepped through the cluster of mourners behind me, broad-shouldered in a dark suit, locks pulled back, eyes steady like a promise. He took my hand, warm and sure, and the chapel's soft buzz tilted into silence. "Simone," I said, letting my wedding band catch the light that her diamonds used to hoard. "This is my husband, Malik Carter." The color drained from Simone's face so fast you'd think someone pulled a plug. Even Calvin, freshly tanned and perfectly tragic, lost his polish. They knew that name. Not because of me, but because of him. Malik nodded with the kind of respect that says, "I see you and I still won't bow." "My condolences," he told Simone, voice low and even. "Your father raised strong daughters." The words landed like a blessing in a mirror. Simone tried to stand taller, but it was too late. The room had already shifted. Aunt Lottie took one small step closer, like a stage cue. Mr. Patterson from Dad's old business circle looked up from the floral spray, eyes sharp with recognition. "Why you two are married?" Calvin managed, tone hovering between shock and insult, as if my happiness required his permission. "A year and a half this November," Malik replied, thumb grazing my ring. "Best decision I ever made." There it was, the tone. Not revenge. Revelation. This wasn't about proving Simone wrong. It was about letting the truth breathe. I had built a life without her approval and without Calvin's shadow. Love that didn't need an audience. Simone swallowed. How did this even happen? We met through work, I said. In Atlanta. I didn't add the rest. That Malik's firm had edged Calvin's company out of a major hospitality contract by offering better value, not a cheaper pitch. That the margin wasn't 30% but closer to 22%. That competence, not performance, had won the day. I didn't have to. The room was already doing the math. Malik squeezed my hand and angled his body just enough to shelter me from the stares. The gesture said everything my words didn't. I'm here. You're safe. We moved together. For the first time in 4 long years, I realized the strangest, sweetest truth. I didn't care what Simone thought. I didn't care what Calvin felt. I wasn't a victim standing beside a casket. I was a woman with a future, and my future had just walked up and took my hand in front of everybody. May God keep him, Aunt Lottie murmured toward Dad. He lived to see his eldest stand tall. I lifted my chin, kissed Malik's knuckles, and let the eyes around us witness something simple and undeniable. I had survived the storm, and I was no longer wet. People love to say the heart is wise. Mine was simply eager. I met Calvin Rhodes at a fundraiser inside the Heritage Arts Museum in Charlotte. Crystal lights scattered themselves across sequined gowns, and every conversation sounded like a grant proposal. He stood by a silent auction table debating between 2 vacation packages with the confidence of a man who never counts the cost. Our mutual friend introduced us, and Calvin's attention slid onto me like a spotlight, direct, warm, practiced. Back then I worked at Northstar and Company, a boutique brand studio trying to punch above its weight. Calvin praised a campaign I'd led for a green tech startup and asked questions that made me feel seen. By the time the jazz trio packed up, we traded numbers and a little destiny. 10 months later, he proposed during a weekend in Savannah, riverboats drifting past while a ring blinked up at me from a plate dusted with powdered sugar. I said yes before he finished the sentence. The stone wasn't enormous, but it was clean and bright, and I mistook neatness for goodness, polish for character. My father liked Calvin's drive. They talked business language like it was a private dialect. Assets. Runway. Risk. Dad said, "The boy is going somewhere." My sister Simone clapped the loudest. She had a way of celebrating me that felt a half-step offbeat. "Hold on tight, big sis," she'd whisper after family dinners, eyes lingering on Calvin a shade too long. Men like that don't stay single. Wedding planning became Simone's stage. She helped with dress fittings, photographer meetings, food tastings. She took calls from vendors when I was buried in deadlines. She seasick Calvin on dessert options and texted him quick questions about linen colors. I explained it away as enthusiasm, the same way I explained the unfamiliar perfume on Calvin's jacket, the late meetings, the quieting of his laugh when we were alone. The night I found out, I was carrying takeout and a headache to Calvin's office. 14th floor, glass everywhere, a view of the skyline so close you could touch it. The door was cracked. His voice, low, uncertain. A woman's reply. My blood knew it before my head did. I stepped inside. Curry toppled. Styrofoam split. On his leather couch, my fiance and my sister looked up at me like children caught with stolen candy. I didn't scream. I didn't negotiate. I slid the ring off and let it tap his desk like a gavel. Case closed. I drove south that night with 3 suitcases, a box of books, and a blender I never used. New Orleans took me in, humid, forgiving, loud enough that my private sorrow could hide in plain noise. My studio was narrow and stubborn, the kind of place that teaches you the choreography of small rooms. A Mophie bed folded down like a secret. The window faced an alley where cats held midnight meetings. I ate cereal in sadness. I cried in grocery aisles and at bus stops and in the exact middle of my kitchen floor. I sent Northstar a resignation email that was honest when it should have been brief. My savings shrank like fabric in hot water. The job I finally landed paid little more than patience. Juniper and Drum, a scrappy digital outfit in a former warehouse that always smelled like burnt espresso and overheated printers, hired me as an administration. My desk wobbled. The phone rang like it was mad at me. The filing system looked like it had been designed by Jazz. Chaotic, brilliant, out of order. My supervisor, Ms. Aita, a caffeine-powered wonder in her 50s, said, "Answer nice. Schedule smarter than they do." And don't let the creatives make you cry. So I answered nice. I scheduled smarter. And on days when the creatives got sharp, I took lunch on the loading dock and watched the sky change. That's where I met Rhea from accounting. Sensible shoes, quick wit, a heart like her anchors. She slid me a napkin one afternoon when a client had yelled about font sizes for 20 minutes. Come sit at the Woast Bar on St. Claude and order the best ginger ale in the city, she said. We can pretend it's champagne and talk about nothing important. Rhea became my first New Orleans friend, then my first New Orleans family. She told me about her divorce, her teenage son, the way grief sneaks into ordinary Tuesdays. She pressed a card into my hand one night. Dr. Patrice Wynne, therapist. She doesn't just ask how that makes you feel, Rhea said. She hands you tools. Dr. Wynne's office had books with softened spines and a window that let in honest light. She asked me about the girl I was before Calvin, before Simone's applause turned sideways. She asked about childhood games, high school speeches, the first time I ever felt proud of my brain. Trauma shrinks the room around you, she said. We're going to open windows. Healing didn't arrive with trumpets. It arrived like New Orleans rain, sudden, stubborn, then shy sunshine. Some days I was strong enough to grocery shop at rush hour. Other days I carried my heart like a glass bowl and set it down gently in the quiet. I joined Rhea's book club and learned to speak in rooms again. I stopped counting the months since the couch scene. I started counting little wins. No tears today, a boundary held, a joke that made the whole table laugh. 2 dates proved I had standards. One man talked for an hour about collectible sneakers and forgot to ask my name twice. Another asked if my career thing was a phase. I drove home from each and danced alone in my kitchenette to celebrate choosing myself. Then Ms. Aita called me into her office. You're good, she said, which, from her, was a trophy. Take on client coordination and we'll bump your pay. It wasn't much, but it was more than before. I built timelines that held, emails that soothed, bridges between panicking clients and prickly designers. My brain woke up. My shoulders dropped. My life, slight and sturdy, began to fit me. When Dr. Wynne asked if I was ready to date with the intention to share, not to heal, I surprised both of us by saying yes. Not because I was lonely. Because I was whole enough to be curious. I didn't know it yet, but curiosity was already turning its face toward Atlanta, toward a hospitality campaign Juniper and Drum would partner on, toward a client whose calm felt like shelter, toward a man whose name would rattle a ghost from my past and not scare me at all. I didn't need revenge. I needed a future, and I could feel one walking toward me, unhurried and sure. Work carried me to Atlanta, to coordinate a campaign for a boutique hotel chain. The project belonged to a client with a reputation for precision, someone who didn't waste words or money. His name was Malik Carter. I first saw him in a conference room that smelled faintly of strong coffee and new paint. He wore a navy sweater instead of the expected suit, carried a leather notebook instead of a laptop, and looked at people like he expected their words to matter. Most clients gave me instructions as if I were a secretary. Malik asked me what I thought. What makes a guest remember a hotel? He asked during kickoff. Consistency, I said, surprising even myself with the swiftness of my answer. Not just in colors or fonts, consistency in how they feel. Whether it's Memphis or Miami, they need to feel known. He paused, pen hovering, then nodded. Exactly. That's the difference between a room and a refuge. From then on, conversations with Malik became the calm center of a frantic project. He sent timely feedback, thanked people for their work, and, when one of our designers quit mid-campaign, offered to connect us with freelancers he trusted. His referral saved the schedule, and my job. Good people help each other, he said when I tried to thank him. No flourish, no self-congratulation, just steady truth. Over weeks, meetings turned into small detours, arriving a few minutes early to ask about my weekend, staying a little late to share a story about his mother's garden. He'd grown up in Birmingham, studied business at Morehouse, and returned south to build a consulting firm that specialized in hotels, restaurants, and cultural spaces. He spoke about his work like it was craft, not hustle. He asked about my past, but gently, curious, not nosy. I offered edited versions. I left Charlotte for a new start. I like book clubs more than bars. I cook gumbo when I miss home. He didn't press. "You seem like someone who's been through storms," he said once as we walked to the parking lot after a long day. "But storms make strong roots." When the project ended, I felt the emptiness like a room suddenly too quiet. At our last meeting, he lingered with an uncertainty I'd never seen in him. "Would you want to have dinner sometime?" His tone was careful, giving me space to decline. "Not about work. Just dinner." I almost said no. The old fear whispered, "Don't risk another collapse." But the new me, the one therapy and rainstorms and small victories had built, said yes. Our first dinner wasn't fireworks. It was something better. He showed up at a little Creole bistro with a single white tulip. "I remembered you said it was your favorite," he explained, almost shy. We talked 3 hours. No performance, no roles to play. He made me laugh until I felt muscles I hadn't used in years. When he walked me to my car, I realized I didn't want the night to end. Our second dinner came 3 days later. Then a third. Then a rhythm. Messages that were warm but never clingy. Dinners that filled more than bellies. Silences that felt like resting instead of tension. He didn't ask for my past. He gave me presents. One quiet night, over wine and soft jazz at his apartment, Malik cleared his throat. "There's something you should know." I braced. Those words had ended me once. "I used to compete in business with a man you might know. Calvin Rhodes. Small world." The glass nearly slipped from my fingers. My ex-fiance's name. The ghost that had driven me from Charlotte. Malik reached across the table, steadying both the glass and my trembling hand. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked. For the first time in years, I didn't feel panic. I felt choice. I could tell the truth, or not. I could breathe, and I did. That's when I knew this wasn't about replacing a loss. It was about finding a partner who saw me whole. Back in that chapel, everything slowed when I introduced Malik as my husband. The air rippled like a choir holding its breath. Simone's poise cracked, her earrings trembling against her jaw. Calvin's 10 face drained of color, the kind of pallor money can't hide. People didn't just notice. They leaned in. Aunt Lottie tilted her head like she was tuning into a radio frequency. Mr. Patterson, one of Dad's old business partners, shifted closer with a look that said, "I know a storm when I see one." "Why you remarried?" Calvin asked, the disbelief sharp as broken glass. "Almost 2 years," Malik replied easily, his thumb brushing the gold band on my finger. "Amara has given me more joy than I ever imagined." It wasn't just what he said, it was how. Calm. Certain. The opposite of the way Calvin had always spoken about me, like I was an accessory, a bonus, a reflection of his ambition. Malik spoke as if my existence itself was the gift. Simone's lips parted, but no words came. For the first time in her life, she looked like she didn't know her lines. Calvin clenched his fists. "You planned this. Meeting him, marrying him, it's some elaborate revenge scheme against me." The absurdity actually made me laugh. My laughter carried across the quiet room like a bell. "Revenge." I repeated. That would mean I still care enough to waste the energy. I don't. The truth landed in my chest as firmly as it did in the room. I had stopped caring about Calvin years ago. He wasn't a villain in my story anymore. He was simply a page I'd turned. The whispers swelled. Aunts, cousins, church friends. Everybody was piecing together the story. The sister who stole the fiancé, the woman left behind, the comeback she made with a man Calvin couldn't compete against in business or in love. Simone's composure slipped further. For someone who had built her identity on admiration, the shift in perception was brutal. She wasn't the envied one anymore. She was the woman everyone pitied. Malik clasped my hand, steady and sure, while the attention circled us like a drumbeat. He didn't gloat. He didn't grandstand. He simply stood with me, and that was louder than any speech. Calvin muttered something about business deals and undercutting, but Malik shut him down with a simple phrase. "We didn't undercut. We provided better value." That's the difference. It was subtle, professional, but devastating. Everyone who mattered understood. Calvin hadn't been outsmarted once. He'd been outclassed, twice over, both in business, and now in life. Simone's voice finally cracked. "Amara, you never said." "There's a lot I never said," I told her, my voice calm and steady. I learned to stop explaining myself to people who were too busy competing to listen. The look she gave me then wasn't her usual smug superiority. It was something raw. Recognition. Fear. Maybe even regret. For the first time in years, I felt the ground shift under my feet, not from betrayal, but from balance. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was standing tall, hand in hand with a man who reflected me, not diminished me. And everyone in that chapel saw it. Every whisper, every turned head, every side glance confirmed it. The story wasn't Amara, the one left behind. It was Amara, the one who rose higher. That moment wasn't revenge. It was revelation. And for the first time in 4 years, I breathed like a woman free. 3 days after the funeral, a soft knock came at my apartment door. Malik was in his study reviewing proposals. I opened it to find Simone standing in the hallway. I almost didn't recognize her. Gone were the diamonds and designer fabrics. She wore plain jeans and a stretched sweater, hair pulled into a careless bun. Her face, stripped of makeup, showed sleepless circles and raw edges. The sister who once carried herself like a billboard for perfection now looked ordinary. "Amara," she whispered. "Can we talk?" In the kitchen, she wrapped her hands around a mug like it was the last anchor she had. Words tumbled out of her, how Calvin had been living above their means for years, how the mansion was drowning in loans, how even her jewelry was on credit she couldn't pay. "He controls everything," she confessed, eyes filling. "Every card, every account. I don't even know how deep the debt goes. All I know is the calls keep coming. Collectors, lawyers, people wanting what he promised." The irony was cruel. At the funeral, she bragged about having the man, the money, the mansion. Now she admitted she had none of the three, at least not in truth. Her voice dropped further. "I think he resents me for it. For being more trouble than I'm worth. Like I was just a prize he chased, and now he's tired of the cost." She looked at me then, tears balanced on her lashes. "Why didn't you fight me back? Why didn't you try to destroy me like I destroyed you?" I sat in silence before answering. Then the words came, quiet and solid. "Because I didn't have to. Time fought for me." It was true. While I rebuilt my life in New Orleans, time had eroded hers. A foundation made of betrayal cannot stand. It only waits to collapse under its own weight. Then she pulled something from her bag, a small leather journal I hadn't seen since childhood. "My father's planner. I found this while cleaning his desk," she said. "I think you should see it." The page she opened was dated months before his passing. In his looping handwriting, I read, "Talk to Amara today. She sounds happy, truly happy, not just pretending. Her voice is music again, like when she was little. My girls used to be best friends. I pray they find their way back to each other. Simone has forgotten that version of herself, but maybe one day she'll remember." Tears blurred the words. Daddy had seen it all, my pain, Simone's hollow victory, but also the possibility of healing neither of us could imagine yet. "He never stopped believing in us," Simone whispered, "even after what I did." We sat there, quiet, two sisters who had once braided each other's hair and whispered secrets under blankets. For a flicker of time, I saw not the rival, not the betrayer, but the girl who once defended me on the playground, the girl I used to love without fear. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said finally. "I don't even know if I deserve it. I just wanted you to know I see now, I didn't just take your fiancé. I stole your faith in family, in loyalty. And I'm sorry." She rose slowly, years heavier than her 35. "Simone," I called before she reached the door. She turned, weary hope in her eyes. "You didn't ruin my life," I said. "You shattered it. But because of that, I was forced to build something better. Something that's mine." A fragile smile curved her lips. The first real smile I'd seen from her in decades. After she left, I sat with Dad's journal open on the table until Malik came in and pulled me close. "Do you feel vindicated?" he asked softly. I thought about it. "No," I said. "I feel sad, but free." And for the first time in 4 long years, freedom was enough. If this story gave you chills, show some love by hitting that like button right now. And tell me in the comments, what was your favorite moment? Was it when my sister's smirk finally disappeared? or when the truth about her so-called perfect life came crashing down. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching, lovelies. Remember, betrayal might break you for a moment, but healing and time will always build you back stronger. For more powerful and unforgettable stories, make sure you subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss a tale that proves real triumph is the best revenge. Until next time, keep your head high and your heart steady.